still following the curriculum and teaching them what they're supposed to learn at their grade level, but also helping them just learn the basics of, how to get around the school and things like that. If they test as advanced and advanced high, they go into the regular English classes with a teacher who's ESL certified, and almost all of ours are. And the teachers know that they're ESL, so they give them accommodations if needed. And we also have some special things that we do, like on this last spring break, we pulled in people for 3 days to get extra classes. A lot of them were ESL students. We do offer tutorials and things like that, and a lot of times it's geared mostly towards towards ESL students, because a lot of times they're the ones that need it the most. This year we have an advisory period where the ESL students were placed in my advisory and Ms. Vora, who's the other ESL teacher's advisories, based on them being ESL and if they're like failing several classes.
Okay.
So I have them for 90 minutes every other day, and I work exclusively with them on math, science, and social studies, trying to get them to do missing assignments or help them with things they don't understand.
Okay. So you in particular aren't assigning them the math and social studies, are they? Or
No,
you
they
are?
take the separate class, the normal classes everybody
Okay.
else does.
Okay, so they are in mainstream classes,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
they're mainstreamed in
then they
everything
would-
except English.
okay.
But then I help them in my advisory class. Normally, this is kind of a different year. Ms. Vora and I also will do what's called push-in support. We go into some of the math and social studies and science classes while those students are in there learning during those periods, and we help them with their work. And we usually try to schedule like the kids that need the most help in those subjects in certain periods, the periods that we don't have our own class, and we do push-ins. But this year we didn't do push-ins because of COVID, and they didn't want
Okay.
extra people going in and everything, in and out. So
What are push-ins? Are they?
we go into the class.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Like last year, let's just take fifth period. I don't have an ESL class fifth period. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would go into the Texas history class for a whole period.
Oh, nice.
And they had a lot of the beginners and intermediate students
Yes.
in there.
Just make sure it's
And I would help them with that.
okay.
And then on Tuesday, Thursday, I would go into a math class with another teacher. And a lot of times I had the same students again, but I'd be helping them with math.
Oh, nice.
So that is kind of an extra program we have here, but
Wow.
we just really didn't do it this year.
Nice. If I was an ESL teacher, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I don't know the language of math. I'd be
Yeah,
like, I'm just kidding.
That's something that's kind of new for us too.
Really? No, I'm just.
It
I know
started
it's
a
more
couple of years
challenging.
ago, but we just really got into it last year, and then this year they kind of
Yeah.
put it on pause.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I
It's
think it'll be back
it's those
next year.
tougher math classes that get me. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know, and it's so vital for the
I mean,
for the.
it's kind of lucky because I'm a generalist.
Oh, that's good.
So I can technically teach math, science, and social
Oh,
studies
that's awesome.
anyway,
That's awesome.
but doesn't mean I know.
Yeah, yeah. So
everything
your
about
background
Texas
like
history and
helps
stuff,
them.
but I know enough that I can usually help the kids with their stuff, especially if I'm in the class with them,
Gotcha,
hearing the teacher's lesson and then helping them.
gotcha.
But when I have in my advisory, sometimes I'm like, does anybody know how to do it? I can't remember how to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I know it's. Who knows, like what kind of geniuses are lying underneath,
Yeah.
right? Just because of a language issue that
Yeah,
they're still
yeah.
getting, like, yeah,
A lot of
definitely.
these kids, they're really good in math or science. Social studies is a little different because, they're learning about Texas history.
Right,
And, if you're from Vietnam or something like,
right.
I mean, I really wouldn't be that interested. I'm not from Texas, so I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
really that interested.
Okay.
I mean, I like history, but
I love his. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if I would really be like a whole year of learning about Texas history.
Yeah.
It would kind of be like, what,
Yeah.
So they have a lot of trouble with social studies,
Okay.
usually.
Okay. So actually, it's probably transition good to this question. What are some of the difficulties you face in helping students develop the oral proficiency skills in English?
The oral is really one of the hardest ones because especially since a lot of the students we get, they've had English in the country where they're coming from. They had a little bit.
Okay.
So they're usually higher on reading and sometimes writing too.
Oh, okay.
But when it comes to the speaking and listening, they really have a hard time. And some of it, I think, is because the teacher they had in that country had a very strong accent
Gotcha.
of that country's
Of that country,
accent.
right? Yeah.
So they're used to hearing somebody speaking in English with a very different accent
Gotcha.
than what I'm speaking and other people. And I kind of have an accent from New England.
Yeah.
It's a little different from people from Texas. So even then, they might understand me, but not understand someone with a very strong Texas accent.
Right. Right. I'm from the north as well, from Philadelphia.
Yeah,
So,
so, yeah.
like I
So
can relate to you.
That is difficult. I mean, I just try to get them to talk as much as possible. We do talk, read, talk, write a lot. I don't
Okay.
know if you know, I think Ms. Buchanan's used that,
Yes.
where you bring up something, they talk about it, then they read something, they talk about it, and they write something. And I mean, one of the main things I really try to do in my class is foster like a feeling that nobody should be afraid to talk. Nobody's going to be laughed at.
Yeah.
Because they can't speak right or that they're behind other students. And
Right.
so I really try to get that out of the way early in the school year and tell people that, people are at different levels in my class. They might be better at reading, but worse at speaking. So
Yeah.
nobody should make fun of anybody. And if anybody
Yes.
starts to laugh, I nip it in the bud. So I want them to be comfortable to be able to speak in my class. And for the most part, they do. But then I do hear other teachers say, that student never says a word in my class. And I know they talk a lot in my class. So
Right. Because
maybe-
that comfort level.
yeah, the comfort
with you.
level. So
Yeah.
that kind of worries me because I know they're not really getting practice speaking in some other classes, just mine. And that's not enough. So we try to get other teachers to do talk, read, talk, write, and things
Yeah.
like that in their subjects too.
Okay. So that's one of the strategies you try
Yeah,
to.
that's a big strategy that the
Awesome.
whole school has adopted, the talk,
Adopted,
read,
okay.
talk, write.
Okay. And so I guess it goes on to my last question. I know you guys just did the TELPAS, and so what is your experience with state level academic achievement and ELP test? How does it impact your English language learners?
I'm probably in the minority that I actually like the test. I do think there's too many,
Okay.
but I do think it's important, especially for the TELPAS, to see their levels. And we know that kids sometimes don't try one year and they'll be advanced high one year, then intermediate the next year. And we know that they didn't regress because we have them in our class.
Right.
We know that they probably just had a bad day or something.
Okay.
So we don't really use those test scores as the only thing, but they do really kind of give you a basic foundation. Okay, this is where we think they are, and then
Gotcha.
after we have them in our class a little while, we can usually realize, whoa, that's not right. And we have moved kids out of our classes because we put them in our class based
Yeah.
on TELPAS,
Okay.
especially if the fifth graders coming in. We don't know the students from fifth grade.
That's true. Yeah.
So we kind of go just by their TELPAS.
Right.
I do write some of their teachers and say, this kid looks pretty close. Do you think he'd be better in this class or that class? So we try to place them right, but sixth grade we get a few wrong.
Okay.
And you get them and you're like, whoa, this kid should be in the beginner class, not the intermediate. Well, this kid is too high. They should be in the LA. And we do move them after the first term or first semester.
Okay.
So we do that a lot. But I like the tests. I use them a lot.
Okay.
The STAR also. We also have a thing called Ren 360.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think if you take TELPAS, Ren 360, and STAR, and maybe throw out the one that doesn't look like it fits,
Okay.
you kind of get a good idea of what level the kids are at.
Okay. So you don't think there's any alternative authentic assessment that would provide more accurate information?
Well, I mean, it is telling because you can also look at what questions they got wrong
Okay.
and kind of see what areas they struggle the most in. And, the argument kind of that goes against a lot of these tests is, for the most part, as English teachers, we know where the kids are struggling. We know if they're having a problem with inferencing.
Gotcha.
So when they take the STAR test and they get 3 out of 4 inferencing questions wrong, and the supervisors say, hey, you need to work on inferencing because the tests show that they don't know inferencing. We're like, tell us something we don't already know. We know they need help in inferencing.
Yeah.
We didn't need the test to tell us that.
Yeah.
So that part
sometimes
doesn't really help me that
It's a
much.
processing issue too, right? It might take
Yeah.
the one student longer
Yeah,
to.
well,
Yeah.
A lot of times what I also find, and that's why I don't really like that part of the test where the district and the school kind of thinks you should be looking at what questions did they get wrong, and then help them in that area. Like, we know where they need the help, but what I've also found is on practice STAR tests when I'm done with kids, and then I see, okay, they got an inferencing question wrong. Okay, so they would say, oh, they don't understand inferencing. But then when I question them, why did you choose answer C? I find out that they didn't understand the word in the question. So when I tell them what that word means, they go, oh no, the answer's B.
Oh.
And they would have got it right. So they knew the inferencing. They just didn't know, like, context clues or trying to figure out the meaning of a word, a multi-meaning word.
Yeah.
Something else confused them, or they just misread the question. So that doesn't always tell what it says it's supposed to be.
Right.
They might say they got 3 out of 4 inferencing wrong, but it was really not a problem with inferencing. It was a problem with knowing words and definitions and figuring out what word meanings are. So that's why I don't really use that much as I'm really supposed to.
Right.
So, I mean, I think there is a value to them, but I'm not sure if it's the value that a lot of other people think.
Absolutely.
You know, like specifically, this is where you should target.
Yeah.
Teachers know where you need to target. They know when you're teaching something, if the kids are getting it or not. You have to reteach it. Like, you don't need a test to tell you that they're not getting it.
So do you think without this program, it would be very hard for these students to kind of?
I do. I don't really think they would do very well in just putting them right in the class like some places do.
Yeah.
We used to take more time. We used to take 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
And we've kind of moved towards this faster, I don't know what it's called. There's some educational term for moving them along quicker.
Okay.
Like in elementary school, they used to try to plan on the bilingual program ends in 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
by the end of 5th grade, they should be ready.
Right.
So they go like 90%, 70%,
So yeah.
like that. My wife's a bilingual teacher, and it didn't work that way.
Okay.
If a student's not understanding something, they're going to tell them in Spanish,
Gotcha.
even in 5th grade.
Wow.
So now they're working in our district on getting them out by 3rd grade
Okay.
and putting them in ESL for 4th and 5th grade.
Right.
So then maybe they're not even in ESL by the time they get to middle school, or they're ready to exit.
Gotcha.
So they're trying to do it quicker. We're moving our kids out a little quicker.
Gotcha.
We used to have an advanced class. Us teachers, the ESL teachers like Ms. Vaughn and I, we'd have a beginning, intermediate, and advanced.
Okay.
And only the advanced high kids went out to ELA.
Okay.
So now we're kind of pushing kids out
Like a little bit
and
quick.
making sure that the teachers are giving accommodations and doing some push-ins like I was mentioning.
Yeah.
And helping them in other ways.
Yeah.
But we are kind of moving towards getting them out quicker. So I think it's a pretty good program. They stay with us 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
and then they're out.
Yeah. That's one of my not concerns, but like, you know, one of the things I really hope to pay attention to as a mainstream teacher, like, you know, will I be helping my ESL, ELL students do the best they can and, you know, make sure that I'm kind of helping them really understand what they need to be learning and not just leave them out.
Yeah, it's a little easier for an English teacher because you kind of know, like, if they're having problems speaking or listening or something, then you help them in that area.
Right.
But when you're talking about math, science, and social studies, and they have 160, 180 students, it's hard for them to know, oh, this kid needs extra help in speaking, and this one in listening, and this one in reading and writing. So they can't really target their help that much.
Right.
But the English teachers, at least at this school, are pretty good at knowing where the kids need help, and they give them extra help in that area. And they look at the TELPAS scores too and see, oh, they're intermediate in speaking, but they're in my class. So they're advanced, which means they got like advanced in reading, advanced in writing, and intermediate in speaking. So they usually know, okay, I need to help this kid speak more.
Because you know, Ms. Buchanan and I are online, and like, it shocks me when she says, "Oh, that student is ESL." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "They just seem like they're fine."
Yeah,
you know,
some of these kids, I really think it's hard to exit ESL. I really think that some of these kids, they don't really need any accommodations. But because you need to pass this, like you need to be advanced high in listening, advanced high in speaking, advanced high in reading, and advanced high in writing.
Right.
Pass. So if you just get advanced in one of those, no. But there's plenty of regular students that are struggling in one area
Yeah.
and they don't get extra support. But that's just my opinion, and that's just the way it is.
I'm gonna pause the recording because I think we got